Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. RGD workers steadfasting off the job for a second day. Major protest in St. Thomas. And later in sports, Windies fight back on opening day of first test against South Africa. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pula and here are the details. For a second day, some Registrar General's Department RGD locations remain closed to the public. This is despite a meeting between the Ministry of Finance and the Jamaica Civil Service Association, which represents employees. The workers are concerned about the alignment exercise under the Public Sector Modernization Program. But President of the JCSA, O'Neill Grant, says some employees want certain aspects of the alignment fully addressed before they resume duties.
We want to see the evidence of the fix that we have discussed. There are still some gaps that have to be filled. I'm still in discussion with the TIU and the Ministry of Finance up to this morning to see how we can fix those gaps. But for the most part, the issues that were raised have been addressed. And I do believe that, we will still have some lingering issues going forward, and we will have to just work together to fix them over time. But for now, I believe that once we get the majority of the issues addressed and we are able to get back with the documentation about those issues to the staff, it will permanently, well, not permanent, but fix the issue to a large degree in terms of their dissatisfaction.
Disruption and delays in Trinityville, St. Thomas today after residents mounted roadblocks to protest the ongoing dust nuisance in the community. We were told the residents took to the streets from as early as 3 o'clock Tuesday morning to vent their frustration. They used large stones, old appliances and other debris to block the main road, impeding motorists.
Seeing nothing, come sure it around side the put on, we can't see. So we now say we have blocked the road. That's people can't go to work. We're blocking the road because the dust is killing we. We stomach everything. The road's wet. And that we are talking about wet the road. Wet the road. Even 3 times in the day, we're good.
Guys are sick, the youth them. The asthma people them have problem with it. The old people them have problem with it. Sinus people have problem with it. Allergy people have problem with it, man. Right? Look how far we live in a bush. And as much as we live in a bush, dust are killing me in my house. Same way.
They say that while they're thankful, something must be done to fix the problem.
But at least we are not pigs, we are not animal. We need somebody to stand up for us. We have got nobody. We are speaking on deaf ears. And at this time, we are fed up. We are asking that the relevant authority to step in.
In the meantime, the National Works Agency, NWA, explained that 2 of the water trucks used to sprinkle the road were out of service, so there was only 1 truck carrying out the work. Communications manager at the NWA, Stephen Shaw, said while the dust was being controlled in the area, the extremely high conditions have made matters worse. He is, however, promising the residents of Trinityville that the road is scheduled to be oiled by Thursday this week, with plans to have it paved by next week. The government is promising more infrastructure such as bridges and roads to Jamaicans. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark said the government is now in a better position to spend more money on these projects. More in this report.
Jamaica's debt is going down. At present, the country's debt to gross domestic product GDP ratio was 79%. And that is good news for taxpayers, especially those longing for certain critical infrastructure in their communities.
As we enter this domain, with our debt going lower, the possibility exists with the fiscal space that is created for us to address the deficiencies in our infrastructure in the country. And by addressing and improving those infrastructure deficiencies, we thereby improve quality of life.
So what are some of the projects the people will see in coming months and years?
It includes highways and roads and bridges But when we speak about infrastructure, we also mean the physical infrastructure that warehouses the delivery of public services. And over the next decade, Jamaica is going to be in a position to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to improve public service delivery through infrastructure upgrades.
And speaking of infrastructure, Dr. Clark admitted most tax offices in Jamaica are not fit for purpose in modern Jamaica, as many are too small, among other constraints such as poor technology. These are the problems the authorities hope to correct with a new facility in Christiana, Manchester. Ground was broken for the building in the Strawn Castle area. The new tax office is expected to take government sources closer to residents for 4 rural parishes.
So Christiana becomes an entrepot point that instead of people wanting to go to Brownstown in St. Anne or to go to down, in Trelawney by the seaside, or in Clarendon, they can it's shorter for them to come to Christiana.
In the meantime, Audley Shaw, who is the Member of Parliament for North East Manchester, made public his wish for the next government-owned facility in the constituency.
I've already appealed to the Prime Minister in the same way that this land is owned by government. You haven't bought it because we had the Public Works Department had an office here, right? But we also have other government properties in the constituency. Not far from here, we have an area that can become and should become a heart, an agency for the heart training program.
Raquel Porto, TVJ News.
Despite a $70 million expansion currently underway at the Sanctus International Airport, talks are already swirling of further expansions. This as the tourism sector continues to be one of the major areas of growth in the economy. O'Shane Masters reports.
A buoyant Edmund Bartlett as he spoke about the prospects of the country's tourism sector. It comes as Frontier Airlines introduced direct flights from 3 additional U.S. cities to the Sanctus International Airport in Montego Bay, St. James last week. He noted that with some 20,000 additional rooms being built, with 3,000 to be ready for the end of the calendar year, the country's tourism infrastructure needs to be improved.
It's going to require several more things of us. And this airport here in Montego Bay is going to have to respond to infrastructure development and expansion in order to deal with this.
But for Minister Bartlett, the bigger picture is for the Sanctus International Airport to become the hub for aviation in the Caribbean.
So the expansion has to happen. When I go to Kingston, I have another discussion for them. But the truth is that as we grow the sector, as we grow the markets, and I want you to know that this year, our budget is being augmented to support new markets. And new markets means new air partners. And new air partners for us are going to flow from the farther distances where the requirements for bigger equipment with larger capacity and longer range is going to come into our space.
It's why he says further expansions will be needed based on the dream for Jamaica's tourism sector and the wider Caribbean region.
As you know, the new strategy I'm engaging with our partners is not to compete anymore, but to compete, to find a way to collaborate and to converge our interests into one common position where we can all grow together. As we say, a rising tide lifts all boats.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says more work is needed to address customer services at public health facilities. Speaking in St. Anne recently, Dr. Tufton says he's putting plans in place to ensure customers are treated fairly when accessing care. More in this report.
For years, some patients accessing healthcare services at public health facilities have been complaining about how they are being treated by healthcare workers. Some have even gotten into physical confrontations, which the Ministry of Health had to intervene.
When people come and they're in distress, because people don't come to hospital or health center for the most part unless they are in distress. That's what sickness represents, right? And sometimes just the way we talk to them and treat with them and address their inquiries, or just to show them a pleasant face, is the beginning of the therapy that they need. Because oftentimes it's probably a little encouragement and counseling that they need to overcome something that's not that serious, but because they don't know, they think it's serious.
But Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton agrees that the problem needs to be fixed.
And I'm committed to it, is to how we as a team in public health, all 23,000 of us, whether we are the nurse, the doctor, the surgeon, or the man who clean the floor, show a unified front to welcoming people, Jamaicans, who come to our healthcare facilities and want help. We're going to have to put more emphasis on customer care, on patient care, recognizing that it is the first point of seeking therapy.
Dr. Tufton says if this is addressed, persons will have a better approach to health workers.
Some people, from them see the doctor, them start get better. Them have pain, but as them see the doctor and explain to the doctor, the doctor says nothing wrong with you, man. The pain just gone same time. Because the mind is a powerful thing. And sometimes the customer service rep on the floor can achieve the same objective. The opposite is true. If you are hostile, if you are, then it amplifies the scenario. And I believe that too often, many of the hardest working people in healthcare, who are the majority, are let down by a few who do not take the time to administer care with compassion.
Hal Shane Burke reporting for TVJ News.
The Jamaica Veterinary Medical Association, JVMA, is raising concerns about the illegal practice of veterinary medicine across the country. President at the JVMA, Dr. Julian Small, says the illicit practice poses a grave risk to public health.
Because we're ingesting, goats, cows. Sometimes persons go out in the field, they inject the animals with antibiotics. And whenever animals are given these types of medications, we have what we call a withdrawal period, where you're supposed to wait until that medication comes out of the animal's system so that we don't end up consuming those medications. So when these laypersons give these medications, they often don't follow these procedures, and we have to be concerned about what is reaching to the human market.
Tammy Brownie is a manager at the Montego Bay Animal Haven. She adds that some animal disease, if not treated properly, could spread to humans.
Worms in a dog. Some worms are zoonotic, which means that people can catch them too. If you don't use the right wormers, or you go to the wrong place to get the wormer for your dog or cat, and it's not wormed, even though you believe you've done the right thing because you've asked a professional, and the dog is not wormed or whatever, then yes, you and your kids, whatever, can catch it.
It's now time for the Business Minute.
Even as Jamaica welcomed a new non-stop air service from Denver International Airport to Montego Bay's Sanxie International Airport with Frontier Airlines on the weekend, executives announced there's more to come. The new flight, operating 3 times per week, will be the only non-stop service from the Denver market.
At 8, starting May 22nd, will turn to a 9 when we add non-stop service thrice weekly to Dallas-Fort Worth. So we're very, very excited.
Further afield, the Finnish company Nokia, which was once a dominant player in the phone business, is changing its logo for the first time in decades to distance itself from that past. Nokia struggled to compete with Apple, Samsung and manufacturers after they launched smartphones. Finally, in 2014, the company sold its mobile phone business to Microsoft. That deal was considered disastrous for Microsoft, which had to take an $8.4 billion write-down the next year. These days, Nokia deals in mobile and cloud networking tech. Now, you're unlikely to see this new logo much because the company focuses primarily on working with other businesses. It doesn't have much of a consumer-facing brand anymore. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Shane Masters.
And now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, St. Lucia will introduce an online boarding and exiting form on Wednesday that allows for the electronic processing of travelers. The electronic form will replace the written form, providing real-time information to immigration and customs. This follows the government's move towards digitalizing public sector services in order to continue improving the island's operations and businesses. On the international scene, more than 3 years after Brexit, Britain and the European Union have reached an agreement on new trade rules in Northern Ireland. This is in an attempt to resolve the problematic issue that has fueled post-Brexit tensions in Europe and the island of Ireland. The deal could potentially resolve the issue of imports and border checks in Northern Ireland, one of the most challenging and controversial aspects of the United Kingdom's split from the EU. This comes as Northern Ireland is part of the UK, but shares a land border with the Republic of Ireland, an EU member state. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Prince Moore.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Jermaine Brown.